She had some things that she was doing, and unfortunately she wasn't able to be with us. But those signs tell us what to look out for in front of us, right? It's meant to prepare for us what's happening next. One thing I've learned in my life is not to try and sugarcoat things when you know what's going to happen next. One of the things that I hate working to my children is things like when we were going to college, we were telling them we're going to uproot from Brisbane and we're going to spend 4 years at college and what they should expect. The feelings, the thoughts, even though I don't know what it's like. I never had that experience as a kid. And then from there, we're moving to Tasmania. And I told them, listen, you're going to be upset. I know you love it here. You love your friends. But we're going to a new place. Mum and I don't even know what to expect. And you don't know. And we meant to tell them how it's going to be. One thing's for certain, I still remember my son, Uriah was 11 years old. He went through a really hard time. It's one thing to be told it, it's another thing to go through it. But he knew that it was coming. And I find with Jesus' method, he doesn't try to pad things to make it, seem softer than it's going to be. And I find that as a loving parent, I hope I'm a loving parent, I feel like I have to be transparent to let them know these things so they know what to expect. I believe this is God's motive for us as well. It's going to happen, it's going to come, but be prepared for these things that we're going to look at. Look for the signs. This is not the most flattering picture of my daughter. That's soccer in the background, you can see. But when I had my when Soccer was pregnant with Uriah, we went and did prenatal classes. And prenatal classes, anyone that's done it, they teach you what to expect in the pregnancy and what to prepare for the climax of the pregnancy when the baby's to come. Right? And I still remember, when they started talking about the contractions, started timing the contractions, I probably asked about 5 questions, because that was a scary moment. I was like, well, so if you're talking about, if it gets shorter, that means the baby, okay, all right. So is it 1 minute or 30 seconds? What are you talking about? Right? So they're telling us that the shorter the time of the contractions, baby's coming then. Right? And so when it was a Friday night, and we were trained for this, Uriah started having, Soccer started having contractions. And we were about to have family worship, but it was far apart. So she's like, it's good, it's okay. So we had worship, and as we were praying, my dad was praying, we were at Mum and Dad's house, Soccer squeezes my hand. And I realized, oh, that's a sign, the contractions are getting closer. So I tapped Dad on the shoulder, as a sign, probably time to wrap up the prayer. And Dad says, oh, okay, and Lord, please be with Soccer. She's about to deliver her first baby. May everything go well. And so we said the amens and jumped in the car. And on the way to the hospital, Soccer was grabbing onto the window, she's grabbing onto the thing. I was like, whoa, this is getting really bad. Getting closer and closer. And as we pulled up to the hospital, I still remember we walked in, it was 20 to 9. And Soccer walked down the hallway, we went to the birthing room, and Uriah was born at 9:21 at night time.
Wow.
And so, okay, that wasn't too bad. It was pretty dramatic. And when it came to Eden, Soccer said to me, hey, listen, when we have a baby, can we not go so early to the hospital? I feel like we were there too long. Me not knowing, I don't sit around with women talking about their birthing things, right? I have heard them afterwards, and I try to exit as soon as I can. But I didn't know that was a short period. I didn't know 40 minutes was short labor. That's not something I understood. Anyway, with Eden, she said keep it shorter. So it was a morning, and I called into work and said, look, Soccer's having contractions now. It's getting closer. She said, okay, I'll see you later on. Let me know how things are going. Anyway, the contractions start getting closer pretty quickly when we're at home. And so I go to call the hospital, tell them to get ready. And our reception wasn't too good, so Soccer was in the sitting room. I had to go to the front door, and I called them. And as I'm talking to her on the phone, Soccer calls and says, David, it's too late. Baby's coming now. And the woman said, did I hear what I just... And I said, yes. She said, stay on the phone. I said, okay. So I go over to Soccer, and I reckon, in my mind, within a minute, Eden was in my hands. Right? And all I remember was the woman saying, David? I said, yes. She said, breathe. I went, oh. Get a blanket, cover up baby, all this kind of stuff. But the prenatal classes never prepared me for the birth. It prepared us to get ready to take my wife to the hospital and have the baby at the hospital. I never imagined delivering a baby. That's never been on the books. So your pastor's also a midwife. I've delivered all but one baby. But it was the contractions, right? It was the contractions that are the sign of baby coming closer. The closer they are together, the more rapid they are, birth is coming. The birth is coming. I want you to keep that in mind as we talk about this in Matthew 24. Sorry about that, Edith, that you were a cute baby. And so in verse 24, verse 8, if you have the King James or the New King James Version, it says that all these and signs that we're seeing are the beginning of the word is sorrows. Right? The actual Greek word is referring to pain that is related to birth pains in particular. That's what the original Greek relates to. It's talking about birth pains. Right? All these are the beginnings of birth pains. So the contractions are beginning. These are the signs of the end. These birth pains that we're about to get into. And the story starts off in Matthew 24 with Jesus on the Mount of Olives. But just a couple of verses before that in chapter 23, where is Jesus at that moment? If you've got your Bibles, have a look at where Jesus is at that moment. Just a few verses before, in Matthew 23, what's the location of the disciples and Jesus Christ? In the temple. This will be the last time that Jesus is ever inside the temple in Jerusalem. He makes these comments, verses 37 to 39 in chapter 23. It says, O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing. You were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. For I say to you, you shall see me no more till you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. He mentions these names that echoes Old Testament language. Your house is left to you desolate. And he just pronounced 7 woes on the leaders of Jerusalem. And the disciples were listening to Jesus as he's pronouncing these woes. And the disciples were listening when he said, your house is left to you desolate. Now, I mentioned before in another series last year, the temple of Jerusalem. What did that mean to the people of Jerusalem, or the people of Israel? What did the temple stand for?
The presence of God. The
presence of God. The Bible says that when God said this in Exodus 25 verse 8, make me a sanctuary so that I may dwell among you. Now, where God dwells, what does that make? What's that location as far as the universe is concerned? It's the center. It's the throne of God in the center of the universe. And Jesus, God himself, pronounces, your house is left unto you desolate. And he's about to exit the temple and never come to the temple again. Your house is left unto you desolate. Here's the response from the disciples. The disciples, in verse 1 of chapter 24, then Jesus went out and departed from the temple. And his disciples came up to show him what? What did they want to show him? The building. Lord, how can you make the pronouncement? Look how big and marvelous these stones are. This is the centerpiece of our existence, and you're talking like this. How, they're trying to impress him. Lord, look at the building, blah, blah, blah. And they walk about a kilometer. They go up to the Mount of Olives, and Jesus sits them down, and he's about to give them a lesson. They've gone from being inside the temple, now looking from a distance to the temple. I make that point for a reason. Right? I think this is important. I did this lesson with my kids just recently. We went to Fraser. It's very different when you're on the beach in One Glass Bay and you can see the waves, experiencing the water, experiencing the sand. It's beautiful. But then you walk up to the lookout and you see it from a distance. Quite often we get caught up in the close-up, right? And we forget to look at it from God's perspective. Look at the bigger picture. Jesus is taking the disciples now and saying, I want to tell you to look at the bigger picture. You still haven't noticed that God has been amongst you this whole time. I'm the center of the universe, and you've been walking with me. And I still need to spell this out for you. And then the disciples asked this question in verse 2. And I believe this question is God-inspired. He says, and Jesus said to them, do you not see all these things? Assuredly I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another that shall not be thrown down. So Jesus kind of doubles down on what he said in the temple. There's going to be no temple. What I mean is, there's going to be no temple. And here's the response from the disciples. If there's no temple, that means that's the... Oh, wow. Similar to how Daniel and his people felt when the temple was gone. And so they asked the question. Now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately saying, tell us. Two questions here. When will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? As far as they're concerned, if the temple's gone, their people are gone. There's no existence. So they're asking the question, so if the temple's gone, how do we know what you're talking about right now? Can you confirm that for us? And so Jesus asks the question two ways. Not only is he talking about the temple being destroyed in AD 70 when the Romans come, he's now making a beeline and talking about the eschatological or the actual coming of Jesus at the end of time. And I'm only going to make 5 points because our time is short. There's a dual application in that. You know? For now, and also for the eschatological reasons. But there's 5 things I want to go through. I want to go through the religious signs, the political signs, the physical things that are happening in the world, the economical, and also, lastly, our social or cultural, how it's been affected. First thing he says in Matthew 24, verse 5, for many will come in my name saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. This was true back in the 80s, wasn't it? It's true back in Jesus' time. Doesn't happen anymore, does it?
It does.
Anyone?
Yeah.
Are there still people claiming to be a Christ?
Yes.
I mean, some of the saddest stories is Mr. Jones and Mr. Koresh, right? The claims that were made, were people deceived by them?
Absolutely.
Oh, you bet. You know, one of my favorites, Jesus de Luis. I loved what he had to say. This guy was in Mexico, and he got millions of dollars from his followers, right? And he said he was Christ resurrected. And the things he would say, just bluntly, you know, yeah, that's me. I'm the one that parted the waters. You know, it's like, wow, this guy, he died in 2013. I don't think he's resurrected, but he's no longer around. But he was a really fascinating character to watch. And just the way people worshipped him when he walked into the church, and people actually sang to him and called him the Christ, sang songs that we sing in faith to where we know that to God in heaven, they sang to him in person because they believed he was resurrected. Right? Really charismatic guy. Just where I'm from, back in Brisbane, just 2 hours north from where we are, there's a guy that claims to be Jesus Christ. And he was able to break up a family and marry a woman and say that she's Mary Magdalene and they're meant to be married. They had a huge following, like in Brisbane. I think they're still around. And there was a guy in Russia that I read about last year. He got arrested by the Russian government. I don't know his real name, but he was known as Visionaries or something. Visionaries. He got arrested for extorting money from people and fraud. And emotional abuse. That was another one. Emotional abuse. So Christ gives this warning from way back then, still happening now. Be careful of false Christs. Well, if Jesus said be careful of false Christ, what question should we be asking? What question should we be asking? What do you think, Eden? How do we know what the real Christ is and the false Christ is?
That's right.
Good, Eden. How do we help each other genuine from the false? Here's my answer. Really quick answer. And this is just one. There's other ways to do it, but I'm going to go straight for the one that I got, that I'm convinced by. There's a prophecy in that Daniel 9, verse 25 to 27 that tells us when the Messiah will come. And Jesus Christ, as we know it, the one that's talking in this, he came on that exact moment. Check out that prophecy. Maybe I'll present it one day. But have a look at that. How can we find the real Messiah? And you find that this Jesus is definitely the genuine one. There is a high probability that nobody else, in fact, I'm going to say, there's no way that anybody else can fit into that prophecy other than this man that we've learned about that says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. And I believe him. Right? Second one, the political world. It says rumors of wars. Let's go to 6 to 7. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet. Right? It's not yet. For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. You can see the political world, what's happening now, what you'll see in these 5 elements that I'm going to go through, everything's kind of mishmashed now. Everything's globalized. You know what I mean by it's globalized? You remember as a child, if you heard some news that was happening, it just happened in your local area. Right? If Turkey has a major fire crisis tonight, we're going to hear about it on the news within an hour. So we know what's happening in everyone's backyard because of what we have as the internet. So it all affects everything, right? When Black Lives Matter march happened in USA with George Floyd, when all those images went around, did it just happen in America? Within weeks, within days, other countries were following along with the same symbols, with the same things, right? All these things are orchestrated, easily orchestrated, because you can go global really quickly. These things can be put together. And with these political things come with wars, right? Tribe against tribe, nation against nation. And there's other things to look out for. And when you see it, you think, oh, this is amazing. And then you listen to Jesus, oh, we shouldn't be surprised. Right? Shouldn't be surprised. We look at the physical world. I like this picture. The world is temporarily closed. Right? I have never experienced anything, and I'm not even going to try to compare ourselves to anyone going through some lockdowns, weeks of lockdowns. Last year, during that period, we were locked down from about March to May, I think it was. And that was enough. I think I was going nuts. You know, I was thinking, I've never heard of things like this before, right? But this is becoming common. As soon as something breaks out, you know, as soon as I heard about launch system, I was like, oh, please, let's not have this happening, right? But in the world, it talks about there will be famines. Are there famines? Yeah, shortage of food in some places. Some countries needing help with farms and things like that. Some people that starving for a long time, and you wonder, why does this have to happen, right? Pestilences. Do I need to say any more on that one? And earthquakes in various places. You know, even though, I remember I had this thought when I was studying this one time, I thought, perhaps natural disasters have been happening for a long time. It's always been the same, it's just that we didn't have the news to report it. Right? So people have done studies on this. It's not the case. It's as if the earth is crying to be relieved. Things are happening more often, not just because of reports, it's actually happening more rapidly now. Things happen one after the other. We have floods just recently in Europe, we've had earthquakes, and all these natural disasters. Even read of some people that say some of them are not natural, man-made. Amazing. And then the next verse says, all these are the beginning of sorrows. I'm jumping to James for this one. James. James chapter 5, verse 1 to 4. Come now, you rich, weep and howl for your miseries that are corrupted upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver are corrupted, and their corrosion will be a witness against you and will eat your flesh like fire. You have heaped up treasure in the last days. Indeed, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, cry out, and the cries of the reapers have reached to the ears of the Lord of the Sabbath. You have lived on the earth in pleasure and luxury. You have fattened your hearts as in a day of slaughter. You have condemned, you have murdered the just. He does not resist you. Do you think that there's a tier of filthy rich people that are extorting and taking advantage of others still and exploiting today?
Yeah. Absolutely.
James says that this is going to be equalized one day. Justice will be brought to those who are in the economy and taking advantage of these things. We're more wise now to these things, aren't we? We're more informed because of what the internet has. And it's not even hidden. You've got big tech companies that are actually revealing to us that they are in control. They can take over the economy, they can stop trades, they can do all these things if they want to do whatever they want to the masses. God says, you will be brought to justice. That's what it says in James. And my encouragement to us is what Jesus said, freely you have received, freely give. That's our economy, isn't it? That's the economy that we live by, and we continue to do so. The last one I want to look at is our social world and the economy, the social and cultural mishappenings here. You can read that in Matthew 24, verse 37 to 40, and it makes comparisons to the days of Noah, just before the flood. I've been told that the antediluvians were of the people that lived before the flood. I think it's Patriarchs and Prophets that makes a comment that they were more intelligent than we are right now. They were able to make things and come up with things that modern man hasn't been able to work out. So their science and their technology or whatever they had must have been much more advanced than we have it now, and God had to bring a stop to that. I always wonder what type of things they were experimenting with. And I often think we're in the worst place. You know, like I never thought when I first read the book, The Great Controversy, and it talked about the state of humans in the last days, I was about 19 or 18 at that time. Not a convinced follower of Jesus at the time, but I should say convicted follower of Jesus. But in my mind, in my human mind, I thought, there's no way humanity can be like that. They can never get so crazy as to have riots like we saw in America. These riots that took place just a couple of weeks ago in Durban, South Africa, things just went out of control. It was literally lawlessness happening here. People looting, and you can see what happens when there's no law in place. I want to read from 2 Timothy. 2 Timothy 3. 2 Timothy 3. Verses 1 to 7. 2 Timothy 3, verse 1 to 7. It says this, but know this, that in the last days perilous times will come. For men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful. Ooh. Let's highlight that one. Unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying its power. And from such people, turn away. I'll stop there. This is written during the time of the New Testament church, the apostles. And we're living in 2021 now. Now there's a poem by Friedrich Nietzsche that I really appreciate. It's called The Parable of the Madman. And he makes an argument, because this is back in the 1900s, early 1900s, 19th century. He makes an observation. Because we're starting to lean on reason and logic so much, and we're getting rid of God, even though he didn't believe in God, and we're getting rid of God in religion, we're not going to know what up and down, left and right. We're not going to know any of these because we've got rid of the moral standings. And he asks the question in this parable, how will we know what is up and down? How will we know where the ocean comes from? How? And when I first read that, I thought, oh, what an amazing question. Just about a decade later, I'm living in that moment now. I'm seeing this attitude that was in the great controversy, and it's real to me now. I can see this can actually happen. People can turn on each other because they have a different opinion or a different preference. And it could be the smallest of things. It's as if the French Revolution, the American Revolution is going to happen all over again. Humans are not humans anymore. Humans are people that are standing in the way of my opinion, and my opinion matters more than yours. But this 73 verses 1, I usually move to 9, it just reeks of a society or people of self-centeredness. Is it possible we've arrived? Is it possible that the contractions that I was talking about, does it seem to be happening closer and closer and closer? Is it just me that's realized that after the Twin Towers, a lot of policies started to come into place real fast. After COVID-19, governments have moved on it. Now they can tell us to wear a mask, and we say, yes sir, put that on, right? And you can see some news back in Brisbane. I watched this heart, you know, like, we've got to be careful with those type of videos and things. They really move your emotional strings. But there was a man that was complying with everything the cop said, and he was trying to tell him, I don't wear a mask because, you know, I've got a medical exemption, but they still handcuffed him, even though he was cooperating. And then lo and behold, he goes into an epileptic fit while he's in handcuffs. And the wife is saying, let me give him his medication. And then just, you know, it's like, is this what we've come to? And as much as my brain tried to work with the cops had to do their job, but it just didn't work. Why can't we see things this way anymore? Why not even have respect for an elderly gentleman? But all these things coming in these quick contractions. Are they enjoyable? Is it peaceful to the heart and encouraging, stimulating? No, it's not. Is this the way God intended this to be? But he's giving us he hasn't padded anything, has he? He hasn't sugarcoated. He said, expect these things to happen. When somebody that's your best friend betrays you and turns your back on you, don't be surprised. Expect that humans will do that. Jesus Christ is the only one that wouldn't do that. Not sugarcoating. The question is this. We read from Jeremiah 29. We talked about being ready. Now that, because we know the signs and we can see that, what does that mean for us? How do we be the people that Jeremiah is speaking to and saying, plant gardens, get married, have families in Babylon, and when you prosper and you have the integrity and faithfulness towards me, you will bless others around you. How do we be those people living in the days that we're living in right now? Because I've just given you a hint of what it means to be ready. Being ready doesn't mean passively waiting, falling asleep, and passively wait. Being ready means we actively wait on the Lord. We actively wait on the Lord. So here are just five elements, and I encourage you, study this for yourselves. Study Daniel 2. Look at Matthew 24. Look at the prophecy of the Messiah. These 5 elements. Appreciate the time that we're living in now. We're living in amazing, amazing times. Jesus says this, therefore you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. I want to do a thought experiment with you. Let's look at these 5 elements. I want to do a thought experiment with you. I may have done this with you in Tasmania. I realize this probably works better in Queensland, but use your imagination anyway. I want you to imagine that you're in your backyard. It's a really hot day, right? It's what's hot in that? 22 degrees is pretty hot, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. I want you to imagine it's 32 degrees in Tasmania. Right? That's a pretty hot day in Brisbane. And then you've blown up a pool, blown up one of those block pools, you put it in the backyard, you put some ice in there, fill it up with the hose, and you're ready to relax. So you just go in your block pool and relax, cool down. Right? And then this man, he jumps over the fence. He's got a yellow cap on. He's got a yellow top, a red cap, yellow top, and red shorts. And he jumps in and he pulls you out of the pool, grabs you around the chest, pulls you out of the pool. He says, "You're safe now. Everything's fine. You're okay." What's your reaction to this person? You're crazy. You're nuts. What are you doing? You're ruining my time of peace. Now, let's put this in another perspective now. You're in the middle of the ocean where you can't see any horizon at all, no land. Right? The waves are swelling really high. It's dark. There's 4 fins that are circling around you. Then this helicopter pulls up, and there's this man with a red cap, yellow t-shirt, red shorts, and he comes down a ladder, and he grabs you around the chest and says, "Hey, I've got you. You're safe now." What's your response to him now?
Don't let go.
Is he still crazy? Not crazy anymore. I want to point out to you, the time we're living in right now, especially for us living in the Western world, living in Tasmania, we feel as if we're in the backyard of the pool. The truth is, that's not the case. We are actually in the ocean. And that man that I'm talking about, only Jesus can save us. He's there for time of peace and time of trouble, but right now we're in the middle of a storm. And Jesus is saying, "I'm here for you." And we are to point to others and say, "Hey, listen, we're not in the backyard in the pool, we're in a storm." If you can see that, give thanks to God. Don't be unthankful. Give gratitude to God. So Jesus says, be ready. What does it mean to be ready? I probably told the story before, but I love telling this story. It makes it even better that it's a true story in Armenia. In the early 80s in Armenia, they had the worst earthquake that they'd ever had. People died in this earthquake. And in Armenia, they had these school classes that are built underground. Well, not just school classes, there are other buildings that are built underground because it's too hot to have it above ground. And on this day, there's a gentleman who walks his son to school every day. And when he walks his son to school, every time he drops him off, he says to his son, "Son, wait for me. I will come and get you." And the son always responded, "Yes, Dad, I'll wait for you because you're going to come and get me." On that particular day of the earthquake, all the classes, the walls and the roofs all crashed in. And the father ran to the school and started moving some of the rubble. Because his son's in there. He promised he'll come back for his son. And some of the other parents, they joined in. And they started moving moving the rubble and the beams and everything. And he was there right to the evening. And the parents said, "Hey, let's just give it a rest." And the next day, they were at it again. And the rescue departments joined in with the parents. Let's do this. After the second day, the parents and the rescue said, "Oh, look, let's just call it. I think we've lost them. Other children have died." And he said, No. He carried on, went through all the evening. And some parents, they helped him. And as they moved one of these beams during that day, the sun ray pierced right through, went down into this dark crevice in the ground. And there were these faces and eyes, just looking up. And there's this kid jumping up and down. "See, I told you my dad's coming back for us." My question to you is, how did that kid have so much enthusiasm in a time of hopelessness?
Trusted his father.
Because he trusted in his father's words. How do you be ready? Get to know the Father through His Word. Spend time in prayer. God says, test me and try me. Challenge Him in prayers. Anything that's on your heart now, any storm that's happening in your life right now, I promise you, get the promise of the Bible, pray it to the Lord and claim it, and see how He answers those prayers. Give a quick testimony, just to back this up. On Tuesday, our poor kids, some of them were going to go see Mount Wellington for the first time. And on our way up there, the bus's turbo just blew out. And we went to the truck stop. The truck stop said, yeah, bring the bus around. And when we pulled up to the bus, to the truck stop, they said, oh, we can't see this until a couple of days. And Mr. Watson, one of the teachers, said, oh, we need it now, right? And so we had a prayer, and I asked the kids, I said, hey, anyone that wants to exercise faith in God for what we've been talking about, I'm going to pray, and I want you to pray as well in your hearts, right? And so we all prayed together, and I claim the promise in Psalms 37 verse 4 that says, if we delight in the Lord, He will give us the desires of our hearts. And so I claimed that promise and said, Lord, we leave it in your hands now. And so Mr. Watson went to the back of the bus, opened up the engine, and he looked at it, saw a hole in the hose, took it out, and he goes, I can fix this. Within an hour and a half, the bus was back and running.
Amen.
And I asked Daniel, how did you know how to fix this? And he said, oh, my dad used to play around with engines and stuff, and I used to come and tinker around with them. That's how I learned. And I thought, wow, isn't that amazing? I thought about how God said, make me a sanctuary, and He chose the men to make the sanctuary, and it said that He gave them the skills and the wisdom that they needed for that time. And there's Daniel, Mr. Watson, had the skills and things that he needed. And here's us. We can make these same promises. And I'm telling you, in those moments, for me, my faith increases. For those children, oh, perhaps God is real for some of them. Some of them, oh, perhaps I should pray more. Yes. Faith increases. In those times of faith increases, when Jesus says, I'm coming back so that where I am, you may be also, you can count on me. Right now, for anyone that's not waiting on Jesus, I'm telling you, He's still going through all the rubble, removing all the beams, all the hurdles in your life, just so that you can see His face. And you can see that this Father loves you with an everlasting love. The moment of Jesus' return is so near, just around the corner. The question I want to ask you is, do you know Jesus? Are you spending time with Him every day? Face to face with Jesus, and I promise you, I guarantee you this. You will find a God that loves you so much that during these times that we're looking at, when news presents hopelessness, Jesus presents hope. Jesus presents to us, you can still live in this moment and be a blessing to others. Make this place, make that arena, wherever you live, a place of blessing so that people can see while you hold on to this hope. And we believe that Jesus is not only with us and will never forsake us, but He's coming back to claim that justice that He said He would. Let's sing our last song together.